one of the things you have to kind of take into account is where you are in your life. And I say that because this is usually a 12 to 18 or more month commitment. Okay. And you have to kind of ask yourself, is this something I want to be doing for the next 2 years, this one project? Because that's what you're getting into. Okay, so I want to just kind of say that first. Second thing is, you need to go through one just to kind of know all the things that you don't know. Okay, but when you go through that 1, 2, 3, 4, number 10, you are way smarter and you've learned the lessons there. Obviously I'll help with the pro formas, but I just want to say from the 50,000 foot view, there's a learning curve to doing this. Okay. And you guys are like, oh, but Santa, yeah, well, that's just the way the world is. So,
money though. I need the money to do it.
Well, what we need to do first, Christine, is we need to lay out the map to show people what the return is going to be, because that's what you're selling. You're not selling the houses to the money people. You're selling the return. Okay. Now you are the diva of Tri-Cities real estate. That's why I drove all the way out there, because you know your market. You know what you are doing. And we've already been through the first part of this once, where we went to the planning department, sat down with a guy, and we've been through the questions. So different city, but same questions. Okay. It's too big of a question to do here today, but in a topical sense, just for everybody's benefit, because Christina and I have already done this once, the first thing you have to do is go to the planner. Okay, that's the first stop. All right. And then once you do that, because that will address your density, your ability short plat, just all the land use general items. That's always first. The second thing is you've got to look at your utilities. Okay. So you have water and sewer and electricity. Those are the three, maybe natural gas, but in my experience, which is not zero, but not tons, but I have experience, the bottleneck usually is the sewer. Okay, because sewer systems are capacity limited. Now, in some places, like for example, Jeff, you're in the greater San Jose area. If you bump out to the coast, one of my favorite places on planet Earth called San Luis Obispo, they limit development by handing out water meters. That's what they do. That's how they control development. So access to the water is, it's no sewer, no water, no water, no sewer. You got to have both, obviously. Okay. So that's the next thing. And in that part of, I'll just call planner phase 1, utilities phase 2, just to kind of break up the conversation. At that point, you should know enough about where the TAPs, the TAPS are, that you can rough, general, basics, have your utility guy, if you will, in your back pocket and go, well, this is what we're looking at. Kind of what's our cost going to be? You don't have plans yet. You don't have engineering, but those guys can kind of go, oh, well, if you got to run a 4-inch water line 300 feet, it's going to cost X, or, to hook into the sewer with the application fee and all the stuff the cities and counties want, all that, it's going to cost Y. Those guys they do this all the time. They just know. Okay. So that kind of gives you a general cost of what your soft cost hard cost for the infrastructure is going to be. Circle back to the planner. Are they going to require mitigations? Okay. For example, do you have to do a land dedication? I was involved in development once where they wanted us to give 3 acres of 10 acres for a park. Well, that's a big give, right? But this whole idea of the private sector and the public sector, when I say public, I mean the cities and counties, these mitigations, it's a hostage taking because they're the ones with the permits, and it can get somewhat hostile. I read an article about a year ago. A guy I think he was in California because what he wanted to do was to build on Lake Tahoe, and he was on the California side. And he whatever city or county in California that he was going to permit, their ask was so onerous that he fought him on it. It went to the California State Supreme Court and he won. Yeah, it was a big landmark case, but it's in California, so it doesn't necessarily play in other states. But I'm just saying that at some point in this planning conversation, you have to look at the mitigations. When we were doing our short plat in Lakewood, originally we wanted to go in and develop 2 new lots. By cutting the one lot into 2 pieces, the city then wanted a 10-foot right-of-way dedication and $80,000 for curb, gutter, sidewalk, and street lamps, and that project wasn't even planned yet. And we were an infill property, so when they were going to do that and they did the taking from the properties next to us, it was all going to be eminent domain where the city was going to have to pay those property owners to seize 10 feet of their front yard. They wanted us to just give it to them for free in exchange for a permit. Okay, so this is the kind of stuff that you get into when you start getting, quote, into the weeds with this kind of work, okay? So then you get that part done, right? And time schedule, critically important. How long is it going to take? What season are you in? I mean, are they putting in water lines in Tri-Cities in January when it's, minus 10? You have to pay attention to that. What is the building season? And then, then you get into the guy that's going to do the foundations and the vertical development. So the building of the properties, I usually budget about 90 days to build a house. It doesn't take that long. Okay. In this kind of conversation, the thing that takes the time is the land. That's what takes the time. And it can take easily a year. Easily. That's not a reach. Okay. So we sit here today in, the sterile confines of a Zoom call, but we all work at some level in the real estate industry. We all know there's a big problem with supply of houses. And I'm here to tell you, and I've seen this for a long time, the bottleneck is not the state legislature or the public or the private sector. We need more houses. The bottleneck is the cities and counties letting us put up more houses. And that comes with the land side. Okay. You get that part done. Build the house part's not that hard. 90 days. Okay. Then how long is it going to take you to sell them? And that's your job, Christine. And, that's where you're smarter when doing pro formas to think it's going to take longer than it actually does, which means your carrying costs are going to be more than you anticipate them to be. We did our Lakewood development. I had lease optioned and pre-sold the house before we even bought the house. I thought, oh, this is great. 30 days before we go to flip the option to the purchase, the guy bails. So 5 months of empty house, twice a month, dropping $500 on broken glass because drug users were breaking in and doing dope in our house in the middle of the winter. Oh, and taking the shower, clogging the drain, leaving their shit in the washing machine. It was ridiculous. Okay. Didn't plan on that one. And it didn't cost us a ton of money, but from an ROI perspective, it dropped our return by 18-20% because we had to carry the property for another 5 months. And of course, by the time it was time to sell, we had an offer. My partner was like, I don't care. Let's just give him $25,000 off. I just want to get rid of it. Okay. That would not have happened in the beginning. That would not have happened had the tenant lease option E executed the contract. So this is the contingency part of doing all this kind of stuff. So my point is we can sit down and do a wonderful pro forma and it'll look awesome. But the question is your dream going to come true? And the thing that'll dilute that dream is unexpected time and unexpected expense. And that's the end of my sermon.